Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we are ranking some of the best time management strategies that anyone can use regardless of your type of business and regardless how good you already are in time management. Hi, I'm Lisa and I help business owners reduce their work week by at least 10 hours every week through increasing their productivity and time management skills. And the great news is you don't have to work harder, you don't have to try harder, and you don't have to be more disciplined for this to work. So one of my favorite strategies for time management are HVAs, and those are high value activities. And the secret is that you want to make sure that you don't pick more than 3 every day and put them somewhere where you can see them. Pop them on a Post-it note right there on your computer screen so that no matter what happens throughout the day, you can come back to what is most important to you. So high value activities are things that move your business forward. It could be as simple as returning an email that is exceptionally important, as well as digging into creating a second income stream. Just whatever your high value activity is, limit it to 3, because come on, you're busy. There's no way you're gonna get more than 3 done in a day with everything else that's going on, and keep them visible. My high value activities for today, for an example, one was to make a call to the printer because I have a workshop coming up and I'm getting a little anxious because the workbooks aren't printed yet. So I want to check in there so that I could relax through the rest of the day. My second high value activity today is to check in with my team. I've been feeling a little disconnected with them recently. We've been doing a lot of work back and forth on Asana, and it can get a little impersonal. So we threw together a last minute Zoom meeting. We're going to jump on and just see how everyone's doing. It doesn't always have to be all about business. Personal matters too, you know. And then my third high value activity for today is to sit down and start to lay out the steps for an on-demand product. One of the challenges my clients face all the time is like, what do you actually do when you sit down at the end of the day to plan your week? And so I'm going to lay that out in a really quick, easy, digestible video to help them and then turn it out there for everyone. Now, I just recently said you want to start with 3 high value activities. Definitely no more than 3. There are days though where 3 is never going to happen. You're packed back to back to back to back. And the thought of doing 3 high value things, not realistic. Just pick one. And if you're struggling to just pick one because you know things are super tight, just think about 5 minutes. What can you do today for 5 minutes that definitely moves your business forward? I don't care how tight your schedule is, you can find one 5-minute block of time to do one task that pushes the business forward. Right. I would love to think that I've always practiced the HVA rule, 3 high value activities every day. And frankly, that's not true. Sometimes when I would have like 15 things and then I would be discouraged because I was spending more time rewriting the to-do list the next day than I was actually doing the things on the list. Other times I would look at my day and I'd have the whole day open to brainstorm or work on the business or whatever phrase you want to use there. And I get to the end of the day and I really didn't accomplish anything. And so being able to come into that rule of 3, you Google rule of 3, you'll find there's a lot about things going in 3s. And one of those is you can focus on 3 things. Once you get more than 3, you can't always focus on them well. So instead, keep it to 3, learn from my mistakes, pick 3, start at 3. When you're choosing your high value activities, don't feel like they have to be the same. It can be 3 drastically different things. So if we look at my example, one was a prep thing for something coming up. Another one was team focused. And then my third one was big picture, creating a product, not very much related at all. However, they could absolutely be related. Like if we were to take that last example of creating an on-demand bite-sized product for keeping how to plan your calendar at the end of the day or for the week, all 3 could have come from there. One could have been think through the outline. A second high value activity could be think about examples. And the third one could have been come up with some visual aids. So it doesn't matter whether they're linked together or not. The key is there's 3 of them and they are right in front of you. So no matter what happens during the day, it's easy to bring your focus back. Delegating is my favorite of all the time management techniques. Delegating is absolutely my favorite. And one of the questions I'll get from clients all the time is, how do I know what I should do? And how do I know what someone else should do? And the answer is really simple to understand. Doesn't mean that it's easy to implement, but it's very simple to understand. You should live in your zone of genius. You started your business for freedom. You started your business for flexibility. You started your business because you love what you do, and you should stay in that zone all the time. Anything that's not in the zone of genius, it goes to someone else. So how do you find your zone of genius? Your zone of genius is the intersection of those things you do really, really well that you are uniquely gifted at. And then the intersection of that with those things that you love to do. Because just because you're good at it doesn't mean you always love to do it. And then finally, the last part of that Venn diagram is the things that move the business forward. I mean, you're a business owner, let's admit it. If you're doing things you love to do and the things you're uniquely good at, but they don't move the business forward, you are not going to be in business very long. So you want to make sure it's the intersection of all three of those parts. Those are yours. Those are your things to keep. Everything else you can delegate to someone else. David Allen talked about the 2-minute rule. So it was like all the thing, and now it's come back again in a different way from James Clear. So let's talk about the 2-minute rule in general. David Allen used it as an example of if it takes less than 2 minutes to do something, do it right now. So if you're filing, if you're answering email, if you're looking at your to-do list, just do it right there if it takes less than 2 minutes. Otherwise, what happens is you put it on a to-do list, you come back to it, your brain has to remember it, and now it's taking more time and more time and more time. So under 2 minutes, do it right away. James Clear, in his new book, actually talks about it in a little bit of a different way. And he talks about it as a way to master habits. And think about any habit that you are trying to create right now, whether it is running a marathon or a 5K, or it is meditating or reading, professional development reading, whatever the case may be. What James Clear says is start it at 2 minutes. Meaning find out one tiny thing that you can do, that one step that you can take that'll move you into action. It isn't about, like they say, couch to 5K immediately. It's about let's do one action that you cannot fail at, and then build on top of that, and then build on top of that. So if you're looking for the example of running a 5K, then your first action is to put on your shoes, and then that's all. Now, after a couple of days of putting on your shoes, you are going to want to actually move, which is great because that's how you're building the habit. So if it's professional development reading, I love to read. I love to read bubblegum for the mind books. I love to read books that relax me, that I can laugh at, that I can try to figure out the ending. I don't always devote the same amount of time to professional development reading. And so that's an area where I enjoy this type of a habit. Sit down, read one page every day. And then I'm not going to just read one page because how often do they end in the middle of a sentence? So then I'll read a couple and I'll end up reading about a chapter. And then I feel good about doing my professional development reading. Sometimes it can feel silly thinking, okay, I'm going to run a 5K and all I'm doing today is putting on my shoes. You're absolutely right. It can feel silly. And that's why I encourage you to use either the Seinfeld rule or the 2-day rule in conjunction with this. So if we look at the Seinfeld rule, so when I think about Seinfeld crossing the X's and making sure he doesn't break the chain, then I'm like, okay, putting on my shoes is definitely more of a significant accomplishment. For some people, the idea of never breaking the chain can feel a little overwhelming, in which case, go ahead and think about the 2-day rule. And the 2-day rule is just that you don't miss the habit. You don't break the chain, to speak, for 2 days in a row. A lot of times I find this is really helpful for clients when they're really good at doing things all week and then they kind of fall off on the weekend. And so that's okay. Keep it going for the 5 days and then take Saturday and Sunday off. That's 2 days in a row. That's fine. And then you're back on Monday through Friday. So there's a lot of ways that you can think about how do I make sure that I'm not missing 2 days in a row, or that I only skip my habit one day, if you want to put it into the positive. And one of the best ways to do that is to have some sort of accountability, whether you use an app or a program. There's programs out there where you can donate money to a cause you hate if you miss your habit. Or you can have an accountability partner where you just check in by text every day to make sure that you're doing what you're going to do. My advice, when you pick that accountability partner, the thing that's worked best for me, I need to pick someone who I'm a little bit frightened of. or at least intimidated by. If I'm accountable to my best friend, we will totally let each other off the hook because I can justify why I didn't do my habit, as can she. And I'm like, oh, I get it. You were tired. So instead, you want to pick someone who you would absolutely not ever want to let down as your accountability partner. Now, I shared with you that having an accountability partner that's a really good friend of mine does not work for me. Maybe it will work for you. And that's the great thing about productivity time management. It's what works for you. What works for me doesn't always work for you. However, if you are looking for what worked for me, what I have found is where I invest my money, I have skin in the game, and then I will follow through no matter what. Whether it's training and hiring a trainer, whether it's hiring a marketing coach, whether it's hiring a mentor. Like many times people will say, oh, I want a free mentor. Okay, that's great. Most of the people that I would love to mentor me are exceptionally busy, and therefore I pay for that mentoring. Your choice. But you want to look for somewhere that you're not going to blow off the accountability piece. Otherwise, you need to find something else to help you stay on track. Another great strategy for making the most of your day, and again, it's not about working more, it's just about making the most of your day, is to time block. And the way that I work with my clients around time blocking is we focus this on their biological prime time. There are times of the day where your focus and your attention are high. There are times of the day where your focus and attention are low. And once we are able to figure out where's the high focus, where's the low focus, and where's that part where you're just coming out of the low to the high, how do we maximize those times? So typically those high focus times, that's where you want to dig in and do analytical data-driven work. Typically, that's not everybody, but think about your business and think about where do you need the most time to really sit and focus well. Block those out. And then you're going to schedule the tasks that match there. Then think about that low time, the trough time. All right, we all have them. There's that time in the day where you could sit looking at the same email 4 or 5 times thinking, how do I respond to this? I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden you find yourself scrolling on your phone through social media. Okay, that's the trough time. That's your time of day that it is a struggle to get anything of high value done. So schedule the low time there. Schedule tasks there that don't require a ton of brain power. I do a lot of my networking times during my low time because people will energize me. So I don't have to be high focus, high attention. I have a client who we call it her putz time because she goes around the office, empties the trash cans, waters the plants, opens the mail. Like those things need to be done. And she used to do those in her high focus time, which was a huge mismatch. Find your high time, find your low time, and then match your activities appropriately. There's a third time to think about, and that's when you're coming out of that low time, moving back up to the high. And that's typically where you will be the most creative. So as you're thinking about what are those times of days where you need to be creative? For me, it's writing. If I write during my high time, it is very do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Whereas if I'm writing when I'm coming out of that trough time, I can tell stories, I can make outside the box connections, I can do all of those things. So I need to schedule my writing during that time. The other thing to think about when we're talking about biological prime time and time blocking is don't fall into the trap of thinking that your biological prime time, the highest part of that, is in the morning because that's when you're least distracted. Those two things need to be mutually exclusive. Just because you're not distracted because you're up at 5 a.m. or no one's in the office yet or whatever that case may be, it doesn't mean that's a time that you naturally focus best. It just means that's a time that no one else is around. So instead, start to think about when do you focus best and then build the blocks around that. Now, when we're talking about time blocking and we're matching our high value activities and high focus activities to those times that it makes most sense because that's when you have the best focus. And conversely, we're doing it with the low value times. What goes in those blocks? I like to, when possible, batch. We have my clients batch like activities together because your brain is on one track, and we want to keep your brain on one track as long as we can so that it's less likely to be distracted. An example is you could batch all your content writing for a month in one of those blocks. You're already thinking, you don't have to think about again, what did I say in my last email? What do I want to say in the next one? What video goes with this? Your brain is for making decisions and for creating. It is not for remembering. So the least amount of time that we can spend in decision fatigue, the better off we are. So go ahead and batch things together. So it could be things batched in the high focus time. It could be batching, shooting a bunch of podcasts in one day. If that works well for you, that does not work well for me. I forget what I've said and what I haven't said, and then it's chaos everywhere. However, there are people who can knock out 8 podcasts a day. You may spend all day Tuesday batching networking meetings. You may say, I'm going to be out of the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm going to batch all my people out of the office time together, or it could be in the afternoons. What you're looking for is what are the things that are similar that you can put together. So recently, I have a program where I send out one resource a month that's exclusive to the people in our time rescue analysis program. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's not on the website. It's not in an e-blast. It's not on YouTube. It's just for this group. And I did all 12 yesterday. All the articles, all the videos, all at once. Now they're done. My team can get them loaded up, get them ready to go. But I was able to batch all of those things together. Maybe you batch financials. Maybe it's Financial Friday and you batch all that together. One of the things that my clients don't realize at the beginning is what type of time management personality they have. And they find that they've been trying to work in a personality that's not them and that's not natural to them. And it's been this really, it's like this push and everything's hard and it's like you're slogging through mud. Once we're able to identify, then it becomes so much easier. So there are many different personalities. The 2 I'm going to talk about right now are hyper focus versus a hopper. Typically, you will hear hoppers beat themselves up. I know I just go from one thing to another. I never finish anything. I do this task and then an hour later I want to do this one and then I'm easily bored and I want to do this. And they feel like they have to be hyper focused, meaning they have to force themselves to sit at the computer and to work for 2 hours straight on one thing. If you're hopper, if you bounce around, embrace it and build the structure so that you actually do finish. Hopping from one thing to another helps keep you engaged. So create your to-do list. Create your to-do list in a way that allows you to work on multiple projects in a day. If you like to hyper focus, then create bigger blocks of time in your schedule where you are not distracted, where you're not having to go to a meeting, where you're not answering questions from your team members so that you can dig in and focus for a long block of time. If you don't know if you're a hyper focus, if you prefer that, or if you prefer to be a hopper, take some time, create your schedule in a way for a week, focusing one way, do it the other way for a week, and see which one feels more natural to you, and then follow that instead of beating yourself up that you're not one or the other. Now, here's the deal. Just because you know the term hopper and you know the term hyper focus doesn't mean you get to use that as your get out of jail free card. So you don't get to say, oh, I'm a hopper, therefore I never finish anything. I just start a lot of stuff until I get bored. Or I really can't work today because I'm a hyper focus and I don't have a 2-hour block of time. The key is to be able to figure out the structure to maximize that tendency that you have. If you are a hopper and you know that when things get tough, that's when you want to bail out and follow the next shiny object, then bring someone in on your team to help support you to keep you moving. Whether it's you're accountable to someone, or whether you start, someone else does the middle, and you finish. When you know how you work, then you can bring in whatever support that you need. You could bring in the 15-minute rule, meaning I know that I don't like to keep working when things get harder, things get boring. Throw on a timer for 15 minutes, throw on some music and say, okay, when the music's done, I'm done and I can move on. Do whatever you need to do. The first step though is awareness, recognizing I stop when things get hard. Now, what can I do to keep moving? Thanks for watching. If you found this content helpful, then I invite you to click the button below and subscribe. Also, in a second, you're going to see lots of videos pop up on the screen, all related to increasing your productivity and time management. Click on those and keep watching. Thanks for coming.